Imagine walking into an empty arcade at night, only to hear the sound of a game playing itself. The joystick moves, the buttons click, but no one is there. My name's the Tales Keeper, and tonight we're exploring 5 haunted arcade horror stories that actually happened. From machines that never shut off to games that reveal terrifying secrets, these are the arcade legends that will make you think twice before pressing start. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a horror story. Now let us begin with Story 1, The Cabinet That Wouldn't Die. There's an old arcade cabinet from the 1980s that workers swore was cursed. It had been through 3 different owners, passed down from one failing arcade to another, because no one wanted to deal with it for long. On the surface, it was just a retro shooter game. But the problem wasn't the gameplay, it was the machine itself. No matter what anyone did, the cabinet never truly shut off. Staff could unplug the power cord from the wall, kill the breakers for the entire arcade, even cut electricity to the whole block. Yet somehow, the cabinet screen would glow again hours later, sometimes minutes later. Its startup jingle would play in a slow, distorted tone, echoing in the empty arcade long after closing. But the strangest part wasn't just the power, it was the game. At first it looked normal, bright pixelated ships blasting across the screen. But after a few minutes, things would change. Background shifted to unfamiliar levels. Enemy designs morphed into jagged, unnatural shapes. Players swore the characters stopped following their programmed patterns and instead seemed to watch them. The sprite's eyes always seemed to face the player directly, no matter where they moved. One repairman who worked on the cabinet claimed that when he opened it up, the wiring inside wasn't standard. Parts were corroded, melted together in strange clusters. The motherboard had no identifiable markings. It was as if the machine had built itself out of scraps over the years. And then came the night the manager decided to haul it outside. They wheeled the cabinet to the dumpster, unplugged and powerless. But when the staff locked up and returned the next morning, the cabinet was back inside, sitting in its usual corner, screen faintly glowing, waiting to be played. No one admitted to moving it. That was the last straw. The manager called a disposal company, and the cabinet was loaded onto a truck and hauled away for good. The arcade staff celebrated, until weeks later, another arcade 2 towns over reported the exact same problem. The same cabinet, same behavior, same game that played itself. And if the stories are true, the machine is still out there, passed from arcade to arcade, glowing in dark corners where no power should run, just waiting for its next player. Story 2, Hidden Messages in the Game. In the mid-90s, a group of friends stumbled onto an old beat-em-up machine at a neighborhood arcade. It wasn't flashy, just a faded cabinet pushed against the far wall, the paint peeling off the sides. But when they played, they noticed something strange. At first, it was normal: punch, kick, move to the next level. But after the second stage, a flicker of white text appeared at the very bottom of the screen. It said, "Don't leave." They laughed it off, assuming it was some kind of leftover debug code or a programmer's joke. But as they kept playing, the messages grew longer. Keep playing. Don't stop. By the 3rd level, the messages weren't generic anymore. They were personal. "We see you, Alex." Alex froze. That was his name. None of the others had entered it on the high score screen, and this was the 90s. No online connections, no hidden updates. It shouldn't have known who he was. The text kept changing. "Your mother is waiting in the dark." Don't look behind you." The boys bolted from the arcade, swearing and laughing nervously, but Alex was pale. His mom had passed away the year before. When they came back a few days later, the cabinet was gone. Not moved, not unplugged. Gone. The staff claimed there had never been such a game in their inventory. Years later, one of the friends swore he saw the same cabinet again. Across town, in another arcade, with the same faded artwork and flickering screen. He didn't go near it. And Alex? He refused to step foot in any arcade after that night. He told his friends that when he slept, sometimes he'd hear faint chiptune music playing in his dreams. Always the same game, always the same voice telling him, "Don't leave." The others joked that it was just his imagination, but Alex never laughed, because he swore one time, in the reflection of his bedroom mirror, he saw pixelated white letters glowing faintly behind him, waiting for him to press start again. Story 3. The Night-Only Machine. In Japan, arcade regulars whispered about a claw machine that only came to life after midnight. During the day, it sat dead in the corner. Lights off, glass fogged with dust, claw hanging motionless. Workers swore it wasn't even wired to power. But if you walked in past midnight, when the arcade was supposed to be closed, its neon would flicker on. The machine glowed with strange pale blue light, casting long reflections across the empty floor. And inside, the prizes were never toys. People claimed to see cracked porcelain dolls with missing eyes, yellowed Polaroids of families they didn't recognize, even VHS tapes with no labels. One story told of someone finding a claw full of human teeth, piled in the glass box like tokens. Those who tried to play the machine said the claw never obeyed. It didn't follow the joystick. Instead, it moved on its own, jerking and twitching, as if controlled by something inside the machine. One player swore that when he leaned in to watch the claw, the reflection staring back at him wasn't his. It was taller, thinner, its head tilting at the exact opposite angle of his own. He yanked his hands back and stumbled away, but the claw didn't stop. It hovered against the glass, tapping once, twice, as if it knew he was still there. By the time he looked again, the machine was dark, dead, just like it was supposed to be. To this day, the arcade denies the machine ever existed. But locals claim that sometimes, when the streets are quiet and the shutters are down, you can hear the faint hum of neon and the clink of a claw dropping inside that building. And if you press your face to the window, they say the machine flickers back on for you, its glass glowing, as something waits on the other side. Story 4. The Game That Played Back. In a Midwest arcade, there was a cabinet for a fighting game that everyone loved. Players lined up quarters along the screen to claim their turn. But after a while, the regulars started whispering about something strange. The computer-controlled fighter wasn't playing fair anymore. It didn't just counter moves. It started copying them. Perfectly. At first, it seemed like advanced programming. If a player jumped, the enemy jumped. If they crouched, the enemy crouched. But then it escalated. One night, a player scratched his nose between rounds. On the screen, his fighter suddenly paused and did the exact same motion, scratching its nose with the same hand. Another time, a boy leaned against the joystick to rest, and the character slumped in the exact same way. It wasn't just imitating their moves, it was imitating them. Word spread, and soon people came just to test it. They'd raise a hand. The character would wave. They'd look left, and the sprite would look left. Every gesture mirrored every time. Then came the night a young man named Chris decided to push it further. He stepped away from the cabinet, arms crossed, refusing to play. On screen, his fighter froze too, then slowly turned toward the edge of the arena, raised a hand, and waved at him. Chris laughed nervously and backed away. That's when the character on screen stepped out of the ring, off the normal stage boundaries, and walked toward the edge of the screen. It stopped, facing the camera, its pixelated face frozen in a crooked smile. The machine shut off instantly. The screen went black. When staff rebooted the cabinet, it worked fine. But the players swore the glitch never left. Every once in a while, the game would pause mid-round, and the opponent would stop fighting. Instead, it would just stare at the player through the glass, waiting. A few weeks later, the cabinet was pulled off the floor and destroyed. But some say its board was salvaged, sold to another arcade. And if you ever find yourself playing an old fighter, and the character starts copying your every move, don't let go of the joystick, because you might not like what it does when you stop. Story 5. The Arcade That Never Closed. In 2003, a mall security guard was doing his late-night rounds. The shops were locked up, lights dimmed, hallways echoing with his footsteps. He passed by the arcade, a place that should have been pitch black, power cut, hours ago. But it wasn't dark. From inside, he heard the faint sound of 8-bit music, joysticks clacking, the chiming noise of high scores being earned. He thought maybe a manager had left something on. But when he reached the doors, what he saw nearly made him drop his flashlight. Every cabinet in the arcade was on. Dozens of them glowed in the dark, running games that hadn't been in circulation for decades. Pac-Man, Galaga. Even cabinets he didn't recognize, their graphics warped and colors bleeding across the screens. And they weren't empty. Through the glass, he saw shadowy figures moving from machine to machine. Not clear people, just outlines, silhouettes, flickering like smoke. He could hear faint laughter, the kind of sound kids make when they win a prize. A chorus of voices playing all at once. He called out, but none of them turned. None of them moved toward him. They just stayed hunched at their machines, hands working the controls, completely absorbed. The guard pulled out his keys, ready to open the door, but the moment his key touched the lock, every screen went black. The room was empty, dead silent. He stepped inside. The air was cold, heavy. He touched one of the cabinets, stone cold. No power, no hum, no glow. Yet when he pulled his hand away, his palm was smeared with dust, as if the machine had been sitting unused for years. He left quickly, refusing to finish his rounds that night. Later, when he checked the mall's security logs, something chilled him even more. The arcade hadn't been rented or open to the public in months. The entire unit was vacant. To this day, staff claim the arcade sometimes flickers back to life after hours. A glow from the dark storefront, the faint sound of coin drops and electronic jingles echoing in the empty mall. And if you listen closely, you can still hear it. An audience of players who never left, trapped in a game that never ends. Maybe arcades aren't just filled with flashing lights and 8-bit nostalgia. Maybe, like the games themselves, they're designed to trap you, to keep you playing long after the credits roll. So if you ever see a machine flicker on when it shouldn't, don't press start. My name is the Tales Keeper, and this has been another Nightmare for Giggles.